Hello, hello, hello. Welcome on in Fantasy Life here. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam Ronis with you for the next couple of hours. It's a Sunday, Adam. It's Happy Father's Day to everyone out there. It's a great day, even though you got mercy ruled in softball this morning. We don't have to talk about it, but it is a great day. How you doing?
Yeah, thanks for reminding me. I was trying to get over it, with your happiness and energy. I figured you would uplift me, but then boom, just jab me right in the face.
Well,
but
you usually don't come in like you were kind of like, you weren't sad, but I was like, hey, how are you? Are you good? And you're like, I'm fine. It's fine.
Yeah, I just hate losing. You know that fantasy, softball, whatever it is. I just hate losing. I'm very competitive. So I know it's supposed to be fun on a Sunday morning, but it was dreary. It was drizzling. But yeah, now we're doing the show. We're talking football. Happy Father's Day to everyone out there as well. And yeah, we're getting closer to the start of the season.
No, I can't believe it.
NBA and NHL are wrapping up. So, some of those late nights now will just be baseball and, heavy football prep as well.
Exactly. So, I can't believe basketball and hockey's still going on. I had that thought the other day. I know it's a long playoff and a lot of teams get into the playoffs. So but it's still so funny to me where I'll look and I'll just be like, wow, that is still going on.
Yeah, I'm used to it. Obviously, it goes deep into June, and we've got a couple of good series. NBA 2-2, Game 5 on Monday.
Nice.
Baseball, obviously, it's a long season there, and football, time to get prepared. Get into those best ball drafts and head over to fantasylife.com and make sure you're getting prepared. Because I think some people, they wait too long. They think, the season, it sneaks up on you, and there's so much information that comes out each day, and you just want to be on top of things, because if you have to scramble last minute, that's the worst feeling. You were able to get by with that in high school and college, right? You don't want to do that in fantasy football. There's just too many good players out there, and you need to be on top of everything. So this way, when your drafts come, you're just ready to go. And the best part about that is, you don't sit there like, oh, I got sniped, I can't believe it. You're just so well prepared. You just move on to the next one, and you see it, especially in these live drafts. I love when I see someone so frustrated that they got sniped and they sit there and sulk about it for several rounds. It's the best watching that, because their mind is not there and it affects them. And we've all been sniped. You just have to forget it and move on. And the more drafts you do, the more prepared you are. You don't worry about it. You're like, all right, cool, I'll just get someone else, and you find the next breakout guy.
It takes me maybe one round. If it's
one
best
round?
Ball,
okay, you got to get better at that.
No, but here's the thing. It only bugs me when, and I understand that people sometimes just get best player available, but when I'm stacking and then someone takes, my quarterback,
right,
but they don't have any single player on that team, and you look around and you say, wait, I was gonna reach. I was already going to be the person to reach. Can you tell that this happened to me just a couple days ago? I was already going to be the person to reach on X player, on this player, and all of a sudden you look around and you're like, wait, where did he, I had him queued up. Where did he go? And he was sniped. And I'm just like, so that's the only thing that'll take me one round, where I'll just complain and then I'll get back into it.
Best ball's a little bit different. And the example you gave is the perfect one, where you will get frustrated because you want that stack, especially if it's a quarterback that you're not expecting to go. I think sometimes, though, people might look at the team next to them and go, oh, yeah, you know what? I'm going to ruin their stack. And it's messed up. But in redraft, you really don't have to worry about that. But yeah, it happened to me the other day. I was one pick away. I said, all right, I think I'm going to get this player. I can't remember who it is now. And the team before me took him. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Worst.
Yeah, it's the worst. It's the worst, especially if you're like, okay, I could wait one more round and get this player. And then you're so close. And then right before you're set to go, they select him. And you're like, are you kidding me? Are you looking at my queue?
Exactly. Or it's I did a Scott Fishbowl mock draft a couple days ago with Women of Fantasy Football. Shout out to them. They do an amazing job. But I've just come to the conclusion, Adam, any player that I want, everyone knows I love Cam Scatterboo. At this point this season, I'm going to have to take him 2 rounds early, because it's not even fun anymore. You know who did it? Sam Holt. Shout out to Sam. But she was
good job, Sam.
He's drafting in the 2 spot. I was the 104. I said, oh, perfect. He's going to come back around. It's a round early. No. What did she do? She goes out and takes him. But that's the fun and not so fun part, because you're right. Once you start getting ready in June, July, and our show's coming back 5 days a week in July. First of all, I just wanted to mention that. We're so excited. So we're going to start 5 days a week starting on July 7th, just an hour earlier, right? So it's 10 a.m. Eastern to noon. Eastern.
That's what I've been told. So it's a little bit earlier for you, but you're up
Are
early
you
anyway.
going to do okay? That's a little bit early.
Yeah, 10 a.m. That's rough.
It's tough. Like 11,
really.
I said, okay, 11, he's just, 10:30 getting up, but 10 a.m. for you.
Do you forget? I understand you want to take shots at me, but when we were away, there were at times I got up early. Sunday mornings, there was a 7 a.m. show, and I play softball every morning early, so I can do it. I can do it. It just means less sleep.
Dare we say you're becoming an early riser?
No, so there were, again, when this channel first started in 2010, I was doing shows 7 a.m. and 6 a.m. 5 days a week. I never adjusted, and some people were like, oh, you'll adjust. It'll take time. Never adjusted. I just can never adjust to waking up early. Never. It's never going to happen.
Yeah, it's but we are excited, so that's going to be fun. Again, July 7th, 5 days a week for us, Monday through Friday, and we are so excited. But all that to say, we're getting Adam, it's important. We're getting ready now, June, July, so that when it does happen, because inevitably you're going to go into your draft and you're going to think, I know exactly how I want this to go. It almost never happens that way. So whether it's Scott Fishbowl, which shout out, I'm doing that this weekend, by the way, going to Vegas.
Oh, the draft is already this weekend.
Yes, we've got our first. Wow. We're the guinea pigs. So we go. I leave Friday, Thursday, and then we draft Saturday. So we did that mock draft, and it was, Adam, it was so interesting. If people don't know Scott Fishbowl, it's a little bit different. It's not a regular league where you just go in and you draft. They've got super special scoring. So for this one, the basics are 6 points for all touchdown, 2 points for all 2-point conversions, and then volume is king here this year. So 0.5 point per carry, and then 2.5 point per reception on sleeper. Tight ends get 1 extra point per reception. So, and then there's IDP scoring, but really it's only for Travis Hunter here, Adam, because it's a sack gets 6 points, safety is 6 points, interception caught 6 points, on and on and on and on. So it was an interesting draft. I'll just say that. We don't have to get too far into it because I don't know how many people listening are doing Scott Fishbowl, but it might be one where, and I know some people listening might be drafting with me on Saturday, I might go 0 QB. I might have some fun with it and not draft a quarterback, depending on who's on the board.
But you can flex a quarterback, right?
Yeah. You can flex all positions. You could go full running back. That's what happened in this mock. Someone went Achane, Breece Hall, Alvin Kamara, Kenneth Walker, Swift. DeAndre Swift.
Okay, so they're looking at the volume and they're saying, hey, if
and
these
Brock
guys...
Bowers did their first pick,
if these guys get carries. Okay.
And the pass-catching running backs. I think that's important.
Yeah, I didn't dive deep into it yet because I don't think mine is till I'm doing the slow draft, July 7th, I believe it starts. So I haven't really looked into it yet. Yeah, I usually
draft. What are you doing? Why aren't you going to the New York one?
I probably will go, but just in case something happens, I didn't want to commit, and then a softball tournament pops up and I can't go, so I'm just gonna do the slow draft. But yeah, nice. I usually do show up in person though, because it's in New York City, so I'll show up in city. Yeah, it is for a great cause and it's a lot of fun, and you get to see people that you don't usually see all the time, but. Yeah, I mean, I usually do okay in a Scott Fishbowl. I never, master it. I always do okay and never go real far just because it's so different. And that's the only league I play in scoring like that. So I've always said this. I'm just more focused on the others. This one's just more fun. This
one's for fun.
Yeah. Of course, I want to win if I'm in anything, but... yeah, the scoring is just so wild, and you see insane strategies. But it's good to get your brain working and try something different. And it's the start of the season, too. You get a draft in. And I always say, being on the clock, and it just helps you. It's like anything. If you run a marathon, you don't just start running 20 miles. You got to slowly build up. And it's the same with drafting. You want to get your brain in that draft mode. Right now, a lot of people are doing slow drafts. Some are you doing mostly slow drafts for your best ball, or are you doing...
No, I'm honestly doing I'm doing the 30-second.
Oh wow, okay. Usually. So yeah, you're really putting yourself in there.
Sometimes I'll join the slow drafts because I don't hate those, but they do go on so long where sometimes I'll be like, okay, what team is this? I haven't picked in 3 days. I can't remember what I was trying to do here.
And then I open the draft board and see.
No, I will, but it's sometimes I'm like, oh crap, I'm on the board and I kind of forget. But I do love the 30-second clock, and they've got different timers now for some of them, so you could do 25, 20 seconds, I believe. So they go quick if you want to get it done.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's good to get you into that mode, especially when your real drafts come up, and if you have a minute clock, I mean, obviously the drafts in person, it's not as rigid. I know when we do our GST, we don't have a clock. We just expect people to pick quick. If you take too much time, then people start throwing things at you. So, you have to get going. But it is good to get into that mode if you are doing a lot of slow drafts. I do the slow drafts.
I know you like the slow drafts.
I have patience. I can deal with it.
Yeah, I don't have any patience, but that's, again, it's going to be fun. So I'll post, like I said, we're the guinea pig group. We're the first ones. I think we're the first ones drafting. So I could go with a strategy, and then in 2 months, people will look at it and be like, what the heck was she thinking? But it's just for fun, like you said. So there might be some fun things that we see this weekend. So I'll make sure to post that draft board. But one thing, Adam, I will say, one player I know we're not drafting, you and I especially, because I mentioned this last week in a break, and you said, what? People are still talking about Nick Chubb? And I feel bad, but we do have to talk about him. We didn't, after our show last week, he was able to actually sign a 1-year deal with the Houston Texans. That's worth up to $5 million. Here's the thing, Adam, we haven't been able to see the Nick Chubb of old. And that is super disappointing, because you and I have talked about him a lot, and he was just a grinder for fantasy purposes. But last season he's coming off a really horrific injury, and then he breaks his foot. So now he gets a new landing spot here with the Houston Texans. Not necessarily good, not necessarily bad for Joe Mixon, but overall, I wrote an article about it. I'm not going out of my way, let's just say that, to draft Nick Chubb. And if he's someone that I'm wrong about, I will welcome that, because that means we get the old Nick Chubb back. But I'm just not going to bet my fantasy season, even if it's a late round pick. I'm just not going to go there.
Yeah, I feel the same way, and I felt the same way last year. I was absolutely surprised at how many people were taking him. I think last year was like round 8, round 9, thinking he'll come back and make a big impact. And again, I am a huge fan of Nick Chubb. I would draft him a lot in fantasy because I thought he was one of the best pure runners in the NFL, consistently averaging over 5 yards per carry. But now you're asking a lot. Coming off all these injuries, he'll be 30 in December, going to a new team. And I don't know how much we could take away from last year, but it was not good. 3.3 yards per carry. I know the offensive line wasn't what it was, but you could see Chubb just didn't have the burst. So I definitely am rooting for him. It would be a phenomenal story, but it just feels like the injuries have taken such a toll, and he's not the same player anymore.
Yeah, he's going to be 30 years old in December. And again, coming off major injuries for the past 2 seasons. The one, of course, 2 years ago was really brutal. But he was able to come back from it. But you said it, career lows in yards per attempt at 3.3. Percentage of carries that gained at least 10 yards was 4.9%. So it wasn't good during that stretch last year. And even in the projections, because I talked with Dwayne McFarland about this too. I said, hey, we're going to talk about J.K. Dobbins here in a second. But I said, Nick Chubb, like, where do you have him? How much are you taking away from Joe Mixon? And it wasn't a lot. That's just all to say it wasn't a lot. Nick Chubb has projected for 442 rushing yards, three touchdowns, and then 28 receiving yards with no touchdowns there. So it comes down to a projected 69.3 total fantasy points, Adam. I mean, total. So you can't, yes, that takes away a little bit. Joe Mixon is still sitting at 865 rushing yards, 7 rushing touchdowns, and then he's got 43 targets, 35 receptions for 261 receiving yards. But still, it's not enough for me. And I really hope that he does, perform better. But I just don't think it's worth taking a pick from.
Yeah, and I think almost everyone is rooting for him. But it just feels like it's the end for him or close to it. So if we're wrong, then someone else is going to benefit.
Honestly, this is one where I'm like, okay, if I'm wrong on this one, that again, it means we get a kind of a vintage Nick Chubb. So that would be kind of fun to watch. But another player that is heading to the Denver Broncos is J.K. Dobbins, another running back that we need to talk about. I don't know, Adam. I thought I was getting pranked when I saw this news, because people said, oh, the RJ Harvey shares, this stinks for him. And I was sitting there thinking, like, I'm still in on RJ Harvey. I know that maybe he doesn't have as much breathing room now with J.K. Dobbins there, but I'm not necessarily scared that J.K. Dobbins is going to come in and take over all the work. He's only 26 years old, and I will give him this. He's coming off his best season, 1,058 scrimmage yards, 9 total touchdowns, 191.8 fantasy points. That was in 13 games. So I think this is worse for Jaleel McLaughlin and Audric Estime. Not necessarily RJ Harvey. Like, no, it's never good when you bring in a good player, especially J.K. Dobbins coming off the season that he had. But to me, I think Dobbins and Harvey will split some rushing work, and then Harvey should handle the majority of the plays in the passing game. That's how I look at it. Are you in on J.K. Dobbins? Do you think he takes too much away from RJ Harvey now?
I think this is good if you want to buy on Harvey because the price was rising so much. Now, also, there are different platforms and different prices. I can tell you this, on Best Ball 10s, Harvey is buried near the bottom. And I was trying to play it like, okay, I'm going to wait another round and get him. And someone took him before. So now I know. I'm like, okay, so there's obviously going to be sharp players in every room. But we've said it so many times. People are influenced by the rankings in front of them and the ADP. So I am buying Harvey still because I think this might push down his price a little bit. The helium was insane. So maybe people back off now. This is more to me adding depth. It's a 1-year deal for $2.75 million, could be $5 million with incentives. And I think they just kind of want that veteran in there as well to ease Harvey in, maybe some pass protection for Dobbins early on as Harvey gets used to it. But I still think Harvey in this offense could take off. So yeah, I'm buying him. Like you said, I think it's bad for the other running backs, Estime and McLaughlin. So I still like Harvey. And look, Dobbins was impressive last year. He did tail off a little bit in the second half. And he was in a run-focused offense too.
Yeah.
So he did do well, but Denver's backfield just really didn't contribute anything last year. And, Pate went out, got a guy he wants. So I still think Harvey is the guy that I want. And I'm just hoping that people see the Dobbins signing and lower Harvey just a little bit because he kept rising and rising.
Oh, yeah. He was underdog. He was going RB 18, RB 19.
Yeah, that's
which,
like, lot.
I'm betting. I really am someone. I do love RJ Harvey. I really like. I just feel like he's a Sean Payton guy, right? We knew Sean Payton wanted to get a running back, and it just felt like he was handpicked by him. And they said, "Hey, we can wait for a second in the first round, and we can wait and get RJ Harvey." But like you said, I mean, Javonte Williams led the Broncos last season, 139 carries, 513 yards with 4 touchdowns, 52 catches, 346 yards on 70 targets. So it feels like Harvey can easily match that workload. And so to me, when I look at Harvey, I see the price tag, and I think I actually have him as my RB20. Like I'm pretty high on him. I'm betting on the ceiling for RJ Harvey, even though there's a little less breathing room with J.K. Dobbins. Like, yeah, if there's some stuff that doesn't go right at the beginning, sure, J.K. Dobbins might be able to step up. But I don't know, Adam, the injury history and just what we've seen from him, I'm done kind of waiting for him to be a phenomenal fantasy asset. Like, I'm not going to wait for that. I'm going to bet on RJ Harvey and the rookie because for as much as we heard that this running back room for the rookies was so deep and so talented, like, why would we not bet on that? It made no sense to me when I saw people kind of jumping ship. So you're right, for RJ Harvey managers or someone that wants to target him, he should get a little bit cheaper because people are still in on Dobbins. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, and you just might have to be a little patient early in the season, and we've seen that with some young running backs. They kind of ease them in. Then once they get acclimated, they take off. So that's the one thing, and we'll probably talk about it early in the season, especially if we see that first week where it's kind of a split. Just stay patient. At some point, I expect Harvey to emerge and be the guy that you're counting on every single week.
I feel like we could say that for a lot of them, though. Like Amarian Hampton isn't, with Najee Harris isn't in the best of spots. Like Travion Henderson, same thing, where we expect these guys to eventually get the big workloads. But we talk about this every season, Adam, and we always get calls about it. And it's understandable because sometimes you just have to look around and say, this isn't working for me. Like there's always someone that we look at on our roster and we say, man, they're not performing well. But with these rookies, we usually see them really start to get acclimated in the middle back half of the season. But sometimes, I don't know, Adam, sometimes you can't wait that long, and we understand that too. So you have to it's tough cutting guys, especially like rookies. Sometimes we usually say just hang on to them, but it is tough, cutting some of those guys.
Yeah, it all depends on the situation, what your roster looks like. He wasn't a rookie last year, but Chase Brown's a good example last year, right? Yeah. I know we were both high on him, and it was bad early on. We're like, oh boy. The first 3 weeks, he didn't have double-digit carries. It took some time. And there were people who probably dropped him, and they absolutely regret it. And those that held on obviously had a guy that you were playing every single week. So I was going to say it's a long season, but it's not in fantasy football. But you do have to understand if you're, last year Chase Brown was, 7th, 8th, 9th round. Yeah. You got to be a little patient at times. And it worked itself out. It took until week 4 when he had 17 touches. So if you could have just waited the 3 weeks. And look, the first 3 weeks of the season, there are no buys. So unless you are hit hard by injury, you should be able to keep these guys on the bench. It's really the bye weeks when it gets tough, or you're 0-3 and 0-4, and you're like, I need to win this week. But yeah. I do think we're going to see a situation with Harvey where eventually you're going to be really happy that you drafted him.
Agree. Okay, so we've got, like I said, J.K. Dobbins going to the Denver Broncos. You've got Nick Chubb heading over to the Houston Texans. So those were kind of the bigger pieces of news throughout this week. We're going to continue on here. Fantasy Life on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. Who will be the most dysfunctional offense in 2025? We're going to break down some options here coming up next. All right, fantasy football fans, sure, the NFL season may be long over, but next season's action is already well underway. We're talking big trades, new signings, draft order shuffles, you name it, and all this preseason NFL action is easier to enjoy with the official beer of the NFL. So get Bud Light delivered today and enjoy every season projection, every player trade, every coaching change and draft pick with the clean, crisp taste of Bud Light, the official beer of the NFL. Stock up now for the offseason and enjoy. Bud Light, easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam, Ronis with you right here on this Sunday, talking all things fantasy football for the 2025 season. As always, you can head on over to fantasylife.com, check out our newsletter, all of our articles, those projections that we talk about. We've got some really awesome stuff coming up here in a few weeks that we wish we could tell you, but you'll know when it happens. So get on over there, fantasylife.com, and check all of that stuff out. We're talking the most dysfunctional offense. We're doing this presented here by Bud Light, and this was a fun article, Adam, that was written by the amazing Chris Allen. He does great work for us over at fantasylife.com. But I did want to bring these up because dysfunctional offenses, when we hear that, you don't necessarily want to target players from potential dysfunctional offenses. So the first one that we can go through, and again, we're doing who will be the most dysfunctional offense, presented here by Bud Light, and trying to predict who that could be. So I want to just hit the obvious candidate at the very top here, because it is the Cleveland Browns. It has to be, right? They Deshaun Watson goes down as one of just the worst contracts, just the worst situation in NFL history. You look at their 2024 offensive points per game at 14.3, which was 32nd. Their offensive line ranking was 20th per PFF. And then they have a ton of quarterbacks in there where we just don't know. Like, yes, it could be Joe Flacco to start the season, but then you go out and you get Dylan Gabriel. You go out and get Shedeur Sanders. So it just seems like a bit of a mess. But all that to say, are you like Jerry Jeudy is someone that you could be targeting? He's not necessarily super cheap in drafts, and same with David Njoku. David Njoku is in our top 7 Fantasy Life consensus tight end rankings. So all that said, like, are you going to be targeting those guys?
So I wouldn't use the word target, and This does happen a lot where people are like, that offense is awful, I don't want any part of it, but there can still be guys who are productive. And most of the time, they're not expensive. Jerry Jeudy is someone I could see taking, especially if he's going to fall. Now, we know last year there was a really stark difference. When Deshaun Watson was in there, it was brutal. Winston comes in, and it's just like he's one of the top receivers in fantasy. So I think it's going to be somewhere in between. They are going to be playing from behind a lot and throwing. So, Jeudy should see a lot of targets. So I'm open to taking him. Njoku, tight end is pretty bad.
It's been getting bad these past few years. Every year I feel like we say the same thing where we look down the line and I'm like, man, David Njoku, tight end 6? Is that where we're at right now?
Yeah, for me, right around 7, 8, like in that range. When you look at it, it's because there's so many question marks with all those tight ends that go after him. And then you have to make the decision, okay, am I going to pay up for one of these elite tight ends? And there's an opportunity cost there that you're passing up on. And then I think others are just going to say, all right, well, I'll take 2 tight ends. Hopefully one of them pans out. But yeah, with Njoku, we know how talented he is. And what you're hoping for, again, is that they just are constantly behind, passing a lot, and the volume makes up for the inefficiency of the offense. But yeah, this is a team where there's going to be a lot of games where they just look dreadful offensively. And we don't even know who the quarterback is, or we could see multiple quarterbacks this year.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And I know people might look at it, Joe Flacco, he did not have a great, it wasn't the Joe Flacco from 2 seasons ago when he was with the Cleveland Browns. Last season was pretty brutal for him when we did see him. I will say, though, if you are a David Njoku fan, you're probably hoping you get Joe Flacco, at least for half the season or whatever it might be, because when Joe Flacco came in for 2023, he made those 5, I believe it was 5, and it was late in the season, those starts that he had. But David Njoku, 390 yards, 4 touchdowns. He was the tight end 2 in PPR fantasy points per game over the span that they had Joe Flacco in there. So I guess that's the silver lining there, is that if you do like David Njoku, you're really just hoping that Joe Flacco comes in maybe for a little bit, or one of the other quarterbacks, whether it's Dylan Gabriel, whether it's Shedeur Sanders, comes in and is able to just pepper them with targets. But that's the other thing too, Adam, about Jerry Jeudy. Like, we finally saw him. He wasn't just a guy. I think that was what he was labeled as, and he was able to kind of have this breakout season. But you were right, it was after we didn't see Deshaun Watson. And so that's the other part too, where I always need to be a little bit more not critical, but just maybe more self-aware. Like, the quarterback situation, yes, is not going to be great, but the volume and the targets is what we always want to chase. Even if it's a mediocre quarterback back there, Jerry Jeudy should be getting most of that volume.
Yeah, and for Njoku, listen to this. 40 of his 97 targets came in the last 3 games.
What?
24 of his 64 receptions came in the final 3 games. So, boy, he just
Bring
didn't.
on Joe Flacco.
And 3 touchdowns in the last 3 games too. 3 of his 5. So
he was on fire.
We know how good he is. We've been waiting. He came out of Miami. He was very athletic, and I think people were expecting big things, and it didn't happen for a while, which we often see with tight ends. But yeah, 2 years ago, 123 targets. We're not going to see that again. But we've mentioned this many times. The bar for tight end is so low. Like, if he just gives you what he gave you last year, and that was only in 11 games. He missed time too. 64 receptions, 505 yards, and 5 touchdowns. That's the key. If he's getting 5-6 touchdowns with 50, 60 receptions, that's enough for tight end 1 in this environment.
Yeah, it's one of those things where every time I look at it, Adam, I just tell myself, okay, if I don't get the top 3, maybe stretch it out to the top 4 tight ends in Laporta, I'll probably just wait. I don't know, depending on if guys, are going a little bit past their ADP, because there is just this drop off where I just say, okay, I could get, I could wait and I could get Travis Kelce, David Njoku, Mark Andrews. I feel like TJ Hawkinson. We're very high on TJ Hawkinson too, by the way. I think he's our tight end. 6. Which I guess if you believe that TJ Hawkinson is now going to be a full year removed from the injury, the offense is going to continue to get better with JJ McCarthy, even though they've got a lot of great players on that team. Maybe you look at it and say, okay, I'm in. But sometimes I do just go into some of these drafts and I say, I don't want a quarterback. I don't want a David Njoku. I don't want a Jonnu Smith. I'm just going to wait and take 2 or 3 at the end and hope one of them gives me decent production.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a strategy this year, whether it's best ball or redraft. If you decide passing on the elite tight end, you're probably going to wind up taking 2 in that 10 to 20 range, and you're going to hope that one of them pans out. If both don't, then yeah, that waiver wire, you're going to try and hit on that tight end, and hopefully you don't
Sometimes it works.
Sometimes it does, but hopefully you don't spend 30% on Isaiah Likely after week 1 last year, and then it falls apart.
That was brutal.
I drafted Likely in a couple leagues, and I had him. I'm like, all right, I got a tight end.
You looked really smart there for a couple weeks.
Yeah, I didn't play him week 1 and missed the big week.
No, because why would you?
Yeah, but yeah, it is, and that's going to be the key. And we're going to have to kind of dig and figure out, okay, who has the opportunity there at tight end that's going outside the top 12 that can be the tight end 1. And that's something that's going to be key for this year, especially if you go in with a plan and say, I can't pay the high price tag for the top tight ends. That it's always critical, that position. You really have to hit on a tight end to win a championship. I mean, you go back and look at your teams. It's really difficult to stream every single week and get it right. So that's very important, getting that tight end.
Do you like Hawkinson at 5? Just straight up?
Yeah,
you do? Okay. I think I've come more around to it. When I was first doing my first pass of rankings, I was like, man, TJ Hawkinson at 5, I don't know. He's coming off he had his knee injury in December 2023. So that's why when we saw him come back, he returned 41 catches, 455 yards, 10 games, no touchdowns. But then I just kind of looked at he's going to be, I believe he is, or going to be 28 years old, which for tight ends, it's a way different conversation when we talk about prime years for tight ends as opposed to prime years for running backs. So he's in a good age range. He obviously, to me, still has a lot left in the tank. And JJ McCarthy, that's been, again, another guy that I've been happy to draft a little bit later. But I'm with you on tight end 5. It sounds, when you say it out loud, you say, oh, that might be expensive. But after that, for us, again, at least at fantasylife.com, because the top 4 are the top 5, honestly, pretty clear. Brock, Trey, McBride, George Kittle, Sam Laporta, TJ Hawkinson. And then it goes Kelsey, Andrews, David Njoku. It's a huge drop off.
Yeah, it is. And you got Evan Ingram in there as well.
Yeah, we've got Ingram 10.
10? Okay.
Jonnu Smith 9. David Njoku 7. Mark Andrews 6.
And you don't feel great about some of them. There's definitely question marks where it could not work out. So, and it's even more difficult in tight end premium leagues where you get 1.5 points per reception. You want to get that right. So, yeah, that is going to be a real key for drafts this year, is figuring out the tight end position. I feel like a lot of years, at least in the last couple, people are like, oh, there's depth at tight end. Then the season starts and they're like, oh, no, there's no depth. I think this year going in, we're like, yeah, it's pretty dicey if you wait on your tight end.
Yeah, it's been like that, I feel like, for the past couple seasons, where I'm just like, I don't like any of this, actually. I'm not having a good time. Who did I draft in our dynasty? I'm doing a dynasty startup. I think I took Jatavian Sanders. I said, no, it can't be that bad, right? Like, maybe he could get better. It's just one of those things with tight ends, unfortunately. So, again, that article is live at fantasylife.com. Who will be the most dysfunctional offense, presented by Bud Light? I've got a couple more teams that I do want to talk through, and then we can go through our late round stacks for best ball. We're going to do that coming up here next. All right, I know some of you listening right now know a high school athlete that could really take their game to the next level, which we would all love to see right here at Fantasy Life. Premier National Sports, though, is the team to help you through that entire process. So they are a trusted recruiting and NIL resource for high school athletes and their families, and they are here specifically to help rising high school athletes take their game to the next level with not only personalized recruiting strategies, but also NIL education, which we all know now is so important. So if you're interested or just want more information, check out Premier National Sports. Again, that is Premier National Sports. Fantasy Life right here. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam Ronis with you on this Sunday. Oh, I forgot to ask you, Adam. I know you're excited about the new Sabrina Carpenter album that's coming out. We'll have new music.
Oh, am I?
Espresso. That's your favorite song. Obviously.
Oh, it's the best.
We do that
it's
for
the
you.
Best.
You
I appreciate
it every day. Yeah, the new album. Come on. I know you're excited.
Very.
Sounds like that's the first you're hearing about it, but that's fine.
No, I saw like an album cover popped up on my feed. So.
And she's still doing her tour. Should we go to her concert?
No.
That'll probably be expensive.
You're gonna go, right? You have money. You can go.
Are you paying for it? Can you get your ticket guy? Can I use your ticket guy to set up connections in LA?
I don't think he has connections in LA.
Didn't you go to what did you do not wrestling? Did you do boxing?
I went to boxing for the first time ever.
I forgot to ask.
It was cool. Yeah, at
nice.
Madison Square Garden last night.
Awesome.
Yeah, pretty good seats. It was like, I don't know, 90 feet from the ring.
What pretty good seats? Those are amazing. What are you talking about? Come on.
So yeah, I wouldn't have gone. Awesome. I wouldn't have gone if I had to, pay for it. My friend had a connection to one of the fighters, someone on his team, and unfortunately that fight was canceled because his opponent did not clear medical.
What is that? I don't know much. What does that mean?
So I guess he had a medical issue. They checked the day before.
No.
He was fine, and then hours before the fight, he was not cleared. So
that stinks.
the guy's from New York. A lot of people came to see him. Yeah,
how
so it was unfortunate. But yeah, the rest of the night's fights were good. 5 out of 6 resulted in knockouts.
Ooh, see, that's fun. Nice.
Yeah, no, it was cool. I mean, I want to experience every sporting event at some point, so I had never gone to boxing.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I guess I still have to do golf, the UFC. I've seen tennis. I was at the U.S. Open in Flushing years ago.
Wow. I'm jealous of that.
I want to go to a huge college football game. I've been to like small ones, Fordham, Villanova. I saw Brian Westbrook when he was at Villanova. But like, I want to do like Alabama, Georgia, like some big college football game.
It always stinks with our schedule though, because I've wanted to do that. My best friend went to Alabama, and we've always tried to go to like Alabama, Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, and it just hasn't worked. May I interest you in an Arizona State Sun Devils football game, Adam? I mean, maybe.
Yeah, why not? They were really good last year, right?
But
but it's still high Division I. Like I want to go a big stadium and just experience that once.
Yeah, those are fun.
Growing up in New York, like college football, it's just not big. I mean, it followed and everything, but it's just you don't have any big college football team around.
Oh yeah, then you need to do that because the tailgating alone and just hanging out with your friends and then walking into the stadium and just the college atmosphere is so fun. It is just so fun. So
I did college basketball like years ago, St. John's Duke at the Garden, but it was like late 90s when Ron Artest was there. So did see that, but yeah, look, you want to experience every. I guess NASCAR I would have to do, right? I'm not big into NASCAR. I heard it's cool in person.
I actually covered in college, now that you mentioned that, I actually covered a NASCAR event where it was I think one of Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s last goes of it. So I technically have gone to that, but it's a lot different when you're it's a lot different when you're covering sporting events than when you're watching. So I was like working and it was hot because it was in Phoenix. Those are pretty cool.
Still there though. Still got to experience it.
You have to sign up for the Masters tickets.
Yeah.
Have you done that yet? You need to do that.
No.
Oh, why?
No, I mean, because
you
no one ever
can't win
wins,
if
right?
you don't try.
That is true. That's like the lotto. Is that why you play the lotto?
Well, I don't play. I don't know what to ask. I never know what to do in there. It's like, what numbers do you want? I say, I don't know. Are you
serious? You don't know how to play?
No.
You just pick the numbers that you think are gonna
pop
up.
But I don't want to pick the numbers.
Why not? So then do quick pick.
See, I don't know the words. I don't know the lingo, Adam. I can't do all that. So
you're probably better off because you are kind of throwing away money. The only time I play the lotto is when it's like 500 million or more. And I only play like a ticket or two. And I'm like, look, if I'm destined to win, it's going to be 1 or 2 tickets. There's people who play every day, $20, $100. No. Put that money in fantasy. Get your fantasy life subscription. That's going to win you more money than a damn lotto ticket.
Agree.
Like, what are we doing?
But can you please go, if I send you a link, can you go to the Masters website so you can sign up for the lotto? That closes for anyone interested. This is # not an ad, but it does close June 20th.
Is it and that's for April, right? Masters are April.
Next year, yeah.
Wow.
So they do June 1st.
Do you know anyone who's ever gotten them?
No.
Okay. That's encouraging.
No. That's fine, but like you can't win if you don't ever try.
That is true, and I guess it's like it's like the lotto. Do you know anyone who's won the lotto? Because I don't.
What? No, that would be awesome though.
I mean, I had a friend of a friend who said he knew someone who won, so I guess it's somewhat real.
He wouldn't lie. Just remember us, please.
Yeah, exactly. Remember who was there for you on Sunday afternoons, getting you ready for fantasy football, April, May,
Saturday,
June.
Sundays. Yeah, remember. Everyone listening, just remember us.
We're not even asking for a lot, just a little bit.
No, just a little bit, or just something to cover our coffee. It's totally fine. What do we do? Fantasy
well, that's
football.
Cheap for your coffee, but that's another story.
We don't have to do this right now. You don't.
I will say this: I didn't realize how expensive coffee has gotten to the last few months.
Yeah,
it's right.
Yeah, that's why I get the big.
Now I see why you do Folgers.
It's $16, and it's amazing coffee. So we can't even go there right now. It's so good. Dysfunctional offense.
Yeah, it's a dysfunctional coffee to dysfunctional offense. Good transition. Good segue. I like it.
It's a good segue for sure. Let me just throw. What are we doing here? It's June. You can already tell. Let me throw out one of these the signs are there. This is, again, like, the signs are there for a dysfunctional offense potentially. You know where I stand because we've gone through my quarterback rankings for Drake May, but the New England Patriots, points per game, 16.5, which was 30th. Offensive line rankings per PFF was 32nd. Their offseason moves, obviously, they added Stephon Diggs. They added some offensive linemen. But when you look at this team, who are you more, I again, don't want to use the word targeting, but if you had an option between, Stephon Diggs, Drake May, are you going in that direction, or are you more looking at Travion Henderson, like he should be the guy from this offense that you want to walk away with?
I'm actually fine with Drake May. I think he could have a much improved season. I wish they did a little bit more for the offense, but I thought he was pretty good as a rookie considering everything that went on around him, and now you bring in a better coach in Vrabel. So, he runs too, like people forget. He had 421 rushing yards last year. So if that passing game can improve a little bit, I think he could be a guy that I'm definitely open to taking, especially if I'm waiting on quarterback. Diggs is the tricky one. He came back and at OTAs looked like he was running pretty well for a guy that is coming off a torn ACL. It's just he's an older receiver, but he could be reliable. Short targets, the volume, catching passes. I still put him in that wide receiver 4 range. I think Travion Henderson definitely could be interest there as well. I think this is going to be an improved offense. I don't think it's going to be one of the worst.
I agree 100% with that. Where, again, I really like Drake May. I think that he is going to be able to step up again in this year too, where kind of things start to slow down a little bit. I do like Travion Henderson. It's a pretty, by the way, though, pretty even workload between him and Ramondre Stevenson in our projections. So that's just something I wanted to throw out there. And I don't mind Diggs, right? If you're looking for the stacks, obviously Diggs is going to be the more expensive wide receiver to go and get. You've got Kendrick Bourne, you've got Mac Hollins. I don't know. Jalen Polk was so bad, Adam. I don't like, it's almost so bad to a point where I say it can't be that bad again, right? 12 receptions for 87. I know he burned, like, not a lot of people and not burned horribly, but people were kind of hoping that he would be someone that would be able to break out last year. 87 yards, 2 touchdowns. Again, 12 receptions. It was so bad. That's why I agree with you. I wish they would have done more with their receiving group than anything else.
They do bring in Kyle Williams, who they're going to need to be productive, so I could see him being the guy there. That's the problem with the Patriots for a while, is developing wide receivers. It feels like everyone that they draft never pans out. So that's definitely something that's going to be needed for Drake May, but they're definitely an improved offense for sure.
That article, again, fantasylife.com to go and check it out. We're continuing on right here talking about, coffee, Sabrina Carpenter, whatever comes to mind, really. And I guess we'll talk about some late round stacks for best ball. We're going to do that coming up next. Sing it, Adam. We could do karaoke.
It's not my thing.
Karaoke? No?
Because I'm a singer.
There we go.
You like it?
First one of the year. I love it. First one of the year. Late round, before we go to late round stacks, can I just tell you someone that I looked through my underdog exposure. I have taken a lot of Jordan Mason. And honestly, I do not hate it when I was looking through it. I wrote an article about this a couple weeks ago, so you guys can go and check that out. But he's going off the board RB32. ADP sitting at like 103, 104. So you can say outside the top 100. I don't know, Adam. Like, I really don't hate this. I had a good amount of Aaron Jones last season, and he did fantasy managers pretty well from the production that he had. And there wasn't much behind him though either from what they had. So I think Jordan Mason, to me, we're just talking about maybe more sneaky late round fantasy picks that you can target. But to me, if Aaron Jones were to go down, he would not only give you RB2 production, but we've seen him in good standing with when he's given those opportunities. I know that he also got a little bit injured last season, but when CMC was sidelined, like it was 12 games, 789 yards, 3 touchdowns. So I don't know. He's one of my favorite guys that I've been drafting. Not necessarily later, but outside the top 100.
Yeah, look, one of the first 7 games last year, he was great. He scored a few touchdowns. He scored 3 in the first 4 games. It's a different offense, but you are right. Aaron Jones is older now. You do have to worry about the injuries. He stayed relatively healthy last year for the most part, and it was also a career high in carries. Green Bay just never gave him that full workload. They probably felt it was best just to keep him healthy, to kind of split that backfield. And then he goes to Minnesota, plays all 17 games, 255 carries, and 51 receptions. So it's a lot of work for a guy that is going to be 31 in December. So Mason is definitely one of the top handcuffs. And, maybe I'm interested to see if they lighten the workload on Aaron Jones and maybe give Mason some work every week. But either way, you're always looking for that handcuff, that backup running back that can work their way into a starting role with an injury, and Mason is definitely there. And a good offense, right? You want that backup running back and a good offense, and I think we all believe in Minnesota with O'Connell there, unless you're like the biggest hater of J.J. McCarthy and think it's not going to change. But look what he did with Sam Darnold, who everyone hated for years, and he was very unproductive and goes in there with all those weapons. So, yeah, Mason is definitely one of those top running back handcuffs.
Yeah, I think he could, depending on how you look at him, could have some standalone value. But I'm looking at our rushing yard, just our projections again at fantasylife.com. 820 rushing yards for Aaron Jones, 656 for Jordan Mason. Both come out to around 5 rushing touchdowns. And then the thing that stands out for Aaron Jones, Adam, is the receiving work, right? 52 targets, 40 receptions, 282 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns through the air. Where you're looking at Jordan Mason, and he only has 54 receiving yards, so that's probably the biggest difference there. But I like him. It's gonna be good, and we're JJ McCarthy believers, right?
I am.
Should we get a name for that? Like what was it last year for Bo Nix? Bo Leavers.
Yeah, I guess we're gonna have to come up with something.
McCarthy. Or we just like Kevin O'Connell because he talked with us at the Super Bowl.
That is true. Yeah,
that was fun too. Fan of Fantasy Life. Water cooler here coming up next. Oh, you already know what time it is. Time for that Fantasy Life water cooler right here on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us on this Sunday, getting you ready for the fantasy season that is honestly right around the corner. We're gonna be back 5 days a week on July 7th, so we're really excited about that. Again, fantasylife.com, though, always want to point you in that direction. That's where you can go and subscribe to our newsletter, 100% free. Check out all of our articles, 100% free as well. And of course, about Fantasy Life Plus. You've got tier 1, tier 2 subscriptions over there. And we've got really cool stuff coming. I know that we've talked a little bit, Adam, and done some segments on, the ceiling floor projections. There's just a lot. There's a lot of cool upgrades coming to fantasylife.com. So that's about all we can say, but it's going to be amazing. You're going to know when it happens. So again, fantasylife.com to go and check that out. All right, let's get into some of the, it's quiet, Adam. There's not a lot going on right now. We already talked about J.K. Dobbins. We talked about Nick Chubb, not necessarily targeting either of those guys. Let me start with Josh Jacobs, just because I think an overall conversation on what we expect for Josh Jacobs in 2025 is interesting. He says that he left a lot, quote, left a lot on the table in 2024. He said, I feel like I had a good year, but it feels like I left a lot out there on the table. For me, I'm trying to come in and chase that #1 spot and raise a Super Bowl trophy at the end of the day. That's the only thing on my mind. But I don't know, Adam, for fantasy football managers, you were pretty happy with what you were given with Josh Jacobs. He was able to come in, finished, I believe, overall RB8 on the season in fantasy points per game, 1,329 yards and a career best 15 touchdowns. So that's one where I did not, I know we talked about this, I didn't have a lot of the really solid running backs off the top. Aaron Jones was probably the one I had most of, and then Derrick Henry as well. But what are your expectations here with Josh Jacobs? Is he someone that you're wanting on a lot of your fantasy squads? Or are you passing him up this year?
Yeah, not really a target for me. Look, last year, I also think Green Bay ran the ball more than they wanted to. Also, they had injuries at the backup running back position. Marshawn Lloyd, I think we expected to come in and maybe take some of the workload away from Jacobs, and he just couldn't stay on the field. So Jacobs had 301 carries. That was the second most in his career. And yeah, he was really good. If you had Jacobs in fantasy, he was phenomenal. And if you look too, it's like every other year with his touchdowns. It's 12, then 9, then 12, then 6, then 15. So you do worry about him a little bit coming off that massive workload, and you would think that they want Jordan Love to pass a little bit more and also maybe get another running back involved so they don't overwork Jacobs too much.
And that's the thing where Jacobs, as much as we do love him, and I do too, I love him as well, but he did run pure for someone last season, where you look at running back injuries, like you said, with AJ Dillon with the neck injury, with Marshawn Lloyd, just never, that one was disappointing, because I did have a good amount of Marshawn Lloyd just as a handcuff in case Jacobs were to go down, but he had hamstring, he had ankle injuries. And I know some people might look and just say, well, Josh Jacobs, because of what he did last season, why would they ever, go back to anyone else? But we've talked about this. Matt LaFleur doesn't have, he has shown the history that he has with, just never always featuring one clear lead running back. I think it just came down to, like you said, Adam, you had injuries not only to those guys, but you had injuries to Jordan Love as well, where they just really had to rely, a lot more on him. So I don't, the bottom line is that, yes, he's going to be a consensus. I think he's obviously inside our top 10 running backs at the position. And so he is going, in round 2, his ADP is probably going to be, for some people, totally just fine. But I think you're going to have more clear workhorse roles from guys maybe going, not necessarily later, but still inside the top, like Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor. Those are other guys that I think we're going to have clear roles, where I do worry that maybe Green Bay goes back to, if Marshawn Lloyd is healthy, being a little bit more split, so they don't have to put all that on him.
Yeah, I definitely think that's the case, and it is something to keep an eye on. And, as good as Jacobs was, it was a lot of volume and touchdowns. It was 4.4 yards per carry. He had 3 100-yard games. You would think that he would have more with all the volume that he had. So I do worry that they are going to lighten the workload on him. I don't think this was the plan last year. It worked out. Just they didn't really have the injuries in the backfield. It just said, all right, well, we're going to have to rely on Jacobs quite a bit here.
And I'm kind of not back in. I don't think I was ever out, but I've not been okay with drafting Jordan Love as a good fantasy quarterback. Consensus Fantasy Life ranking QB 15, and it wasn't good. He slipped last season, and we kind of knew it. He was QB 33 on a per game basis from weeks 8 to 18. That's not good, Adam. It just wasn't good. We know the injuries came down to it. They did try to help, right? They said, all right, we're going to draft our first wide receiver in the first round since 2002, and maybe that does help. I don't know, but I'm not totally out on Jordan Love. I think as much as other people are, between Jordan Love and CJ Stroud, feel like people might be out, but I'm kind of buying the dip on them right now.
Well, as your QB2, right?
Yes. No, not as my, overall.
Do you always take 2 quarterbacks in every league you're in? You do?
Oh, no, it depends. It depends on the roster. If there's not that many bench spots and I get an elite quarterback, I'm good, just taking one. And that goes probably up till, Kyler Murray, Justin Fields. But then once we get into Trevor Lawrence range, CJ Stroud, Jordan Love, I might look at taking a second one, but it just kind of depends on the league. I know you don't.
If it's depending. 16 roster spots, which I don't play in many leagues like that, I'm only taking one. 2. If I have 6 bench spots, I just cannot take the second quarterback. Mm-hmm. And it infuriates me when I see these industry leagues or host league and I see almost everyone taking a second quarterback, because I know they're going to be dropped week 1, week 2, week 3, because as the season goes and you have bye weeks and injuries, you can't afford to take that roster spot. And yet people do it every year. And I also think, too, if you're drafting now, July, August, you want as many lottery tickets at the running back position. Last year was a bad example because we just didn't have a lot of injuries. I don't see that happening again. And the injuries could occur in training camp, and you want to have as many of those running backs on your roster so you don't have to go out and spend a lot of money on the waiver wire. But yeah, most of my leagues are 20 roster spots, I'm going to take a second quarterback most of the time. Now, if I do happen to get one of the top guys, a Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, Josh Allen, one of those elite guys, Burrow, I will not take my second one until the last 2 to 3 rounds, because what is the point If you're going to invest an early pick on one of those top quarterbacks, you're playing them every week. Don't, oh, well, they got a tough matchup this week. They're an elite quarterback. I don't care who they're facing. You're putting them in. And what's the floor for those guys? 20 points if they have a bad week, and most of those guys run. So it makes no sense. I know the argument will be, well, they can get hurt. Yeah, anyone can get hurt. But it just, at that point, you're all in on that quarterback, and you could just get someone really late. And worst case scenario, if they do get hurt early in the year, there usually is someone that you can get off the waiver wire. I mean, last year it was, depending on the week, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Bo Nix. Like, it's never obvious at the beginning of the year. You're always looking at those guys like, yeah, I don't like any of these guys, but there's always going to be a couple guys that emerge and surprise. So the quarterback strategy should be easy for you. Again, if you take the elite guy, you don't need a backup, or you're taking him real late. And then sometimes if you miss out and you wait, maybe you can get two. And for you, I guess Jordan Love and CJ Stroud be one of the two in the discussion, hoping they bounce back.
Yeah. Best ball, I'm usually walking away, honestly, with 3.
Yeah, best ball's different.
Best ball's different, but that's one where at the very end, you're just throwing a dart on like a Tyler Shuck. You're just saying, okay, well, if he does do well, and I have, if I drafted Chris Olave,
if he gives you 2 weeks,
right, you're okay with it. Yeah, you're fine with it. I'm like, my big question this season, I think, when looking at just the quarterbacks and the rankings, is if we've had it for the last couple seasons, Adam, but if we have another, Sam Darnold performance in a quarterback that we're not necessarily, like if Daniel Jones really could revamp his career, because I don't know, looking back, we've seen it happen to some of these guys where we had it with Geno Smith. We just had it with Sam Darnold. So that's not me saying like, I'm betting on Daniel Jones to do that. But historically, for the past few seasons, some quarterback has stepped up. Baker Mayfield, who we just talked about. I mean, he revamped his career. We've seen it, over the past few seasons. So I'm looking right now and I'm like, I can't go far enough to say, oh, it's going to be Daniel Jones, but he is someone at the end of drafts where I say, could he revamp his career on a new offense where he's already going to have a leg up because Anthony Richardson is injured, and he could develop the chemistry that he needs in training camp and get the job. I don't know. It's not just Daniel Jones, but I've been thinking about that over the last couple weeks.
Look, it happens. We see sometimes quarterbacks need a change of environment, a different coaching staff to get the best out of them. You cited some of the examples recently, and a lot of times you don't see it coming, right? Because if we would have had this discussion about some of these guys a few years ago, people are like, you're crazy, it's not going to happen. And people are probably saying that now about Daniel Jones. We know Daniel Jones can run. We've seen that. And probably his best array of weapons that he's had, right? With Pittman and Downs. I mean, they have some weapons there. With the Giants, he really only had neighbors last year. I mean, you could say Slayton and Wandale Robinson, but I guess if you're looking down there, I guess he would have to be at least one of the guys that's in the conversation, right?
It has to be, right? It'd have to be him. I'm not going that far for Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson. Geno Smith, we already know. I don't count. Here's my thing. I don't count rookies in this because we just I always get a little bit. This is just my opinion, but when people name breakout, potential breakout players and it's a rookie, I'm just like, oh, okay. So they're just, doing well in their first season. I don't necessarily see them as breakout candidates. In my mind, like Joe Flacco, I guess, is another one where you could look down the list, but it really stops for me at Daniel Jones, where there could be a chance. Again, I haven't looked too much into it yet, but it's just been interesting seeing Geno, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield revamp their careers, a little bit later. And if we're looking at the list, Daniel Jones might have to be a part of it. Could be fun.
The quarterback position is pretty difficult to play in the NFL, and sometimes it takes many years. We are so quick to give up on these players after 1 or 2 years. Oh, they stink. And then, there's an adjustment period, and a lot of times too, as we've seen in those cases, just coaching. I mean, that's the biggest thing, going into the right system, right? With Sam Darnold going to Minnesota, it just all clicked. I mean, look at the weapons you had around him, and O'Connell as the coach. So it can happen.
It could happen. I'm thinking the same way. We got a small sample size, but I've been really needing to look and do a little bit more on Michael Penix because, the rankings are coming out here soon. And for me, I'm looking at Michael Penix and I'm saying, okay, like he did flash. I mean, he flashed upside as a rookie. He did not get, again, small sample size, but he put forward pretty good marks. You look at EPA per dropback, you look at the PFF pass grade, which was 87.6, completion percentage over expected, overall passer rating weren't great. But when we look at some of those other things, we saw flashes. That's the other part where just looking for some quarterbacks that we can draft late, Adam. That's the key, and that's what helps you in fantasy. Like if you drafted Baker Mayfield late last season, you were riding a great wave throughout the whole year. And so we always want to look and try and find those guys, but it's not necessarily as easy as just being like, oh yeah, go ahead and draft Michael Penix, draft Bryce Young. Hopefully that happens. You just, you have to look at the guys that showed flashes, and Penix did. He's going pretty late too.
Yeah, I don't see it from him. Okay. We only saw like basically 3 full games, so it's really difficult to take away. And he went against some pretty bad defense as well. I just think that the way Atlanta wants to operate, it's going to be a lot of Bijan Robinson. So they're going to be more focused on the run. I just don't see him putting up the fantasy numbers you want, even taking him as a number 2 quarterback. I think there's better options out there.
He's our QB 24 consensus.
Yeah, see? And that basically...
But that feels right.
Yeah, and that's essentially saying, yeah, he's probably not going to do much.
Yeah, probably not. But hey, Bijan Robinson, I took him with my first pick, 104 in that Scott Fish mock, and I felt great about it.
Is that what pick you have in the real draft? 4?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have pick 4. 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you can just look at my draft. And
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just
that's what's going to happen this weekend. Drafting 110 degrees in It's going to be fun though in Las Vegas. That'll be a good time.
You've probably been to Vegas many times, right?
I have been to Vegas many. It's so close. We're driving. It's 4 hours.
4 hours? Okay, that's not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. So I'm really excited about that. So that's my thoughts on Daniel Jones. Continuing on here through the water cooler, we do this where we do one headline and then all of a sudden we're just going a totally different direction. But let me give you this one quote because I know that we've talked a lot in the beginning once the draft happened about Emeka Egbuka, but I will say Mike Evans came out and said this might be the best receiving room I've been in. We know Mike Evans heading into his 12th season. Chris Godwin coming off of his injury. The team has already come out to say, the head coaches, everything. Emeka Egbuka was not a pick that they made because they do not believe that Chris Godwin could come back on time, but it does allow him to come back, take his time in the rehab and come back when he needs to. He is supposed to be good and on track for week 1, but all that to say again, Adam, we've got Baker Mayfield, I believe QB7 in our rankings. And it, again, that sounds high, but it just feels right because of what he's been able to prove to us the past few seasons. Now you add another weapon for him in the passing game with Emeka Egbuka, who's a wide receiver we loved when we were looking at all of his stats from college and everything. So I think it's fun to hear Mike Evans say that this is a great room. You add Emeka Egbuka, and we should have Baker Mayfield giving us another great fantasy season.
Yeah, look, I think we all were wishing for Egbuka to go into a better situation for redraft, but Dynasty, it's fine because, again, Evans and Godwin are older. And look, there's still a chance this year that he plays a role at some point. We all know that Evans dealt with a hamstring injury last year. Godwin, as you mentioned, coming off the injury as well. So it's when you're drafting them, like best ball is different. Obviously, you're hoping to get some big weeks, and it's similar to what we saw last year with Jalen McMillan, where it wasn't good early on, but if you had him in best ball, he came through in the biggest weeks, which you often see with rookies. It takes some time. But even a redraft with Egbuka, if you do take him, he's obviously going to be on your bench, and you're just going to have to be patient. It's similar to last year with McMillan, because McMillan was a guy I drafted in a lot of leagues, held on to him, and then there comes a point. The bye weeks start week 4, week 5. You have injuries, and you get to a point like, well, he's not doing much. And initially when Evans and Godwin went down, he didn't do much either. And you cut him and you move on, and then at the end of the year, when they emerge and have that great stretch, including the fantasy postseason, you're like, yeah, I wish I held on. But
yeah,
I don't regret the decisions. Sometimes there are decisions you regret in fantasy. Other times you go back, you're like, hey, look, at that time, I made the best decision with the information at hand, and I couldn't wait. It's easy to say afterwards, oh, I should have waited. Look what he did. You have to make that decision, and you're always going to have regrets that you make in fantasy. It's part of the game. We can't get everything 100% right, but Egbuka, I do think, is a guy that you're just going to have to put on your bench and be patient. And there might come a point where you cut him, and it might be later in the year if there is an injury to one of those guys where he just steps up. As far as Mayfield, you are right. Like, you're putting him in that range, but do you feel good drafting him at that price?
I'm going to be honest.
I don't
either. And I feel like I'm drafting him at his ceiling, but the ceilings that he's given us have been so good where I do talk myself into it and I say, okay, I mean, this is his ceiling. This is what he's given us. I never expect Baker though to be like to outperform that ADP though. If we're drafting him at QB7, I just never take him and say, okay, well, he's going to be a top 3 quarterback. Like, he's going to contend for that QB1, fantasy QB1 overall. So I feel okay. I don't feel bad, but all that to say, I don't feel great about it because QB7, I mean, that's high.
Right. So 2 years ago, he had 4,044 yards, 28 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. If he gives you that again, are you going to be happy at QB7?
No.
Right. And last year was 41 touchdowns and 4,500 yards. And yes, Evans missed a couple games. Godwin missed a good amount of time. But the touchdown percentage was 7.2%. It was 4.9% the year before, and it's 5% for his career. So more than likely, you're getting 30, 32 touchdowns, maybe 4,300 yards, which is fine. But, like, you are paying for a career year last year. And again, if you're doing projections, he's probably going to come out at 7 or 8. Yeah. But, like, you just feel like, okay, I can wait a couple rounds and get someone who's similar or maybe better. That's just the way I kind of look at it.
And I think that's the difficult part with the rankings though, is because you can't put him you can't put him outside the top 10. You can't really put him outside the top.
I mean, you could if you want.
You could, but it's just, I do understand, like, from what he's shown us. But the one thing that I worry about with Baker going into this year is not only he's expensive, and usually you and I are usually on the same page when we draft quarterbacks like that. We're not usually going out and getting the top 5, top 7 guys. Or
I'm more open to it this year than before. Yeah.
But I'd rather go top, like, if I'm going to do it, let me go top 3. That's sounding right. Top 3, top 4. It's 7's in that range where I'm like, oh, okay, like, maybe you could go get him. But I'm just worried about the regression that comes with Baker Mayfield after the season that he had, because, he averaged 22.6 points per game. You look at the touchdowns per pass attempt, 7.2%, Adam. I mean, it was insane. He threw a touchdown on 7.2% of his pass attempts, and the average of the NFL last season was 5.1%.
And his career is 5%.
And it was the passing yards per attempt was way up as well. He was super efficient, 7.9 yards per attempt, and his career average is sitting around 7.2. And then the rushing yards per game, he gave us a ton of rushing yards per game. It just feels like all that could come back down to earth just a little bit, but that still doesn't, like, he's still a good fantasy quarterback. All that to say, he's still, in my mind, a top 10 fantasy QB.
Yeah, he basically had the same amount of pass attempts the last 2 years. It was 566 and 570. It was the completion percentage went way up. That's the other thing, too, is completion percentage went from 64.3% to 71.4%, and his career marked 63.5%. And if you want to say, well, early in his career wasn't great, you want to look at what he did in Tampa, that's fair, but 70% again seems high. So, and again, if the touchdowns come down.
He had 41 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's 41. Really difficult to repeat.
We have him projected for 28. And even that's
what he
good.
did 2 years ago.
But that's still good. But, like, 41, when you say 41 out loud, it's amazing.
It really is. It's just a testament to how good he was last year.
So good. Man, should I move him? I might move him. See, this is what happens when you do
that's what you do.
Rankings. Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, the rankings are going to change. It's as you're doing research, as you're drafting, because I always say, when you're on the clock and you're putting your money where your mouth is, that is the telltale sign. And that's where I start to adjust my rankings too, because I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm not going on these rankings, so I have to make an adjustment. And it's going to continue all the way up until start of the season. There's a lot of movement.
Yeah, and that's why I tell people, when you look at our rankings and when mine come out, like, I'm going to move these guys. But if I'm already talking like this about Baker and I'm not taking him at 7, then I have to move him, because you have to, it has to be in line with your opinion. And if I'm not taking Baker Mayfield at 7, I might have to look at that. So that's regression, maybe. There's a great article at fantasylife.com, though, about Baker Mayfield and some other potential regression candidates that I highly recommend you guys go and check out. All right, that was the Fantasy Life water cooler. Again, fantasylife.com, just mentioned that article, but you can go and sign up for all of our, see all of our articles and sign up for that newsletter 100% free. We're going to go through draft or pass. We're going to do that here coming up next. Oh, yeah. We've got a new segment here, Adam, and we are so excited about it because it is draft or pass going into the 2025 NFL season. This one here today is presented by Premier Sports, but I picked some names out for you, Adam. And I'm going to be interested if you are going to draft or pass them because these are all guys that went down with injuries in 2024. So kind of throwing you through a little bit of a loop here. Like if you like them, if you think they're on track with their injuries and their rehab, are you ready to go?
I am. You probably think I'm going to pass on all of them because they're injured or coming off injury.
No, I think there's a couple. I threw a couple in here that I said, you know what, Adam might look at these guys and be kind of optimistic about them or their situations. So, all right, let's get into it. Draft or pass right now. Let's start with
draft or pass.
All right, let me start with a good one here. Let me start with draft or pass, Adam. Let me give you Chris Olave. Let me give you Chris Olave and see what you're thinking about him. We know, unfortunately, it was the concussions that took him out last season, and he's been dealing with them throughout his career. Wide receiver 37 on Underdog. First of all, before we get into it, are you going to draft or pass Chris Olave?
Draft.
Ooh. Okay.
Draft.
Oh, I like it. All right. I'm not surprised because I know we've talked about Chris Olave here before, but tell me what you think about him and why you're not scared to draft him at that price tag.
Well, the price tag is just so low. This was a guy that was going in the second round last year, and I understand the situation with the Saints is not the best. We don't know about, the quarterback, probably going to be Tyler Shuck, obviously, and, Kellen Moore comes in. So there's definitely questions with the offense, but we've seen when Olave's healthy, he can produce, and we don't have to pay the ridiculous high price that we've had in recent seasons. Now, people are going to be worried about the concussions. 2 more last year, limiting him to 8 games. But if he's going to be wide receiver 37, I'm going to take a chance at that point. That probably is going to be my wide receiver 4. So if it doesn't pan out and the offense isn't good, or the injury strikes again, it's not going to cripple your team. It's a big difference taking him in round 2 where you're counting on him. So I think the price is cheaper, and I'm going to draft at that point.
I'm actually with you on this one with Olave. I took him a good amount last season, and he was expensive. That was he was a second round pick.
Second round pick.
He was going after Drake London, and it was. The process, I think, was right, but you just can't predict, and it was unfortunate with the concussions that happened. But now you've got, I look at it too, Adam, and I say, okay, Kellen Moore is now there, and we know that he loves to operate a high-powered offense. The quarterback, Tyler Shuck, probably, week 1 starter, is going to be looking at Chris Olave early and often. And so I think that Olave, for all that it's worth, the price is right for him, and I think the injury history and just the potential of bad quarterback play is already baked into that price. So I'm with you. I think I'm going to be drafting him as well. I like that. Look at us on track already. It's like we do this for a living. All right, you want another one?
Let's
go. Another guy that went down with injury last season. Are you going to draft or pass Rashee Rice?
I'm going to draft.
Draft.
Knee injury in week 4, and it was not good, right? Tore his LCL, had to go in and get surgery. What makes you want to draft Rashee Rice again this season? I'm very curious on this one.
Because we saw last year when he was healthy, and I know it was a limited sample, how good he was. And as I'm assuming he's good to go, and we'll start the season with no issues. I was very high on him last year. People were worried about the potential suspension last year, which is why he was cheap in the earlier drafts. As we got closer to the start of the season, he started to rise. But just look at the games he played. And I know it's only 3 games, but 7 catches, 103 yards, 5 for 75 and a touchdown, 12 for 110 and a touchdown. So he was becoming the focal point of the offense. I know Xavier Worthy came on strong towards the end of the year. You got Travis Kelce there, but I still think it's going to be focused on Rice. So I know in some drafts he's going really high. I'm hoping in some others he'll be cheaper, but I am absolutely open to taking Rice this year. I just think he has the potential to just go off in this offense. I understand there's a lot of other receivers there. You got a full offseason now of Hollywood Brown. Kelce's still there, but I think Rice is going to be the top guy if healthy.
I disagree. I'm not going out of my way to draft Rashee Rice this season. So this is one where I might say pass instead of draft, only because he's expensive. He's expensive right now, and I think it's more the price instead of the player. Where I'm hating the ADP instead of the player. But Rashee Rice going as the wide receiver 12 on Underdog.
Well, yeah. I didn't realize it was that high.
It's that high. I mean, people.
That's
people
too pricey. Why? Damn.
I don't know. Well, it doesn't make it better. Wide receiver 13. He's going right after T. Higgins. So I think people have the same thought process as you, but to me, the price, and of course it's going to be different once we start drafting on, ESPN, Yahoo leagues, whatever league you are in, it's going to be a different ADP because the Underdog we know pushes wide receivers up pretty high, but I cannot. I haven't clicked it. I haven't clicked his name yet because wide receiver 13 to me is just too expensive for what we should expect Xavier Worthy to come in and do. Travis Kelce is still here in this offense, and again, I'm not doubting him as a player, but even in the projections, it's like a split between them. Xavier Worthy 113 targets, Rashee Rice 105, all coming out to 825 receiving yards for Worthy and 891 for Rashee Rice. It's just too expensive.
It absolutely is. I'm actually kind of stunned at that. I guess people are remembering what we saw last year. Now, he is cheaper on other sites. I'm looking at our ADP tool on Fantasy Life. He's 45.6 on ESPN, 43.6 on Sleeper, and on Yahoo, 58.5. So, yeah, it's the Underdog tax here where he's 24th.
They said, "Hey, I'm with you." So what'd you say?
So I wouldn't on Underdog then if he's going to be
around the 50s. Is that what you said? Just overall pick 50?
I mean, yeah, or you can get him in the 40s for ESPN in Sleeper as well.
See, I don't mind that because that, like, if again, this is Underdog, but if that means he's going around like Cortland Sutton, Devontae Smith, right? Then if that's his price.
Yeah, I'm looking now at the NFFC high stakes. He's 46. See, that's way more appealing.
I would be more in on him. I'm hating on the price right now. Like, that's why I just haven't drafted him because I just think that's expensive.
And that's the thing. A lot of these platforms are different, and we talk about Underdog a lot because basketball. The wide receivers are just, you have to pay an extreme tax there. So in that format, I'm not going to do it. But all the other sites where it's in the 40s, yeah, I'm going to do it. Round 4, because that could be potentially my wide receiver 3 if I do a running back and 3 receivers. And, yeah, there is some risk with Rice. But, again, as long as he's healthy, I think he's the top guy in that offense. I know people argue Worthy, but we saw what Rice was doing early on. And from what I last saw, I think this court date thing is taking a while, too. It keeps getting pushed back here. So I'd have to do more digging on that to see about the suspension because that was something people were worried about last year. But from what I last saw, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon.
And I'm going to be honest, like the stuff that I've read, it's looking like maybe a 3 to 4 game suspension, right? It's not a full season suspension from what we've been told. And so I just always caution people, like I don't look at potential suspensions and say, well, this guy is completely off my radar. Because when people did that last, it was with Alvin Kamara, and he completely helped your fantasy season that year. I believe that, what was that now, 2 years ago? That happened, where he was extremely cheap because people were nervous, and then it ended up being that he got 3 games, I believe, 3 or 4 games, and he still was able to smash his average draft position. And so I just say that again, we just have to keep an eye out. I haven't seen a complete update yet, but it's looking like if it's going to happen, it might be this year, or they could push it another year. I don't know, Adam.
I guess
I'm just saying, don't like.
From what I'm seeing, it depends if he goes to court this year, right? Okay. And we're already here in June. So if he doesn't go to court this year, you're probably not going to see the suspension this year.
Can we do one more rapid fire? Okay, draft or pass. Same offense. Isaiah Pacheco.
Draft.
Ooh. What? You're drafting everyone. I literally thought I was going to get some names in here where you're going to be like, pass. Okay, Isaiah Pacheco, fibula fracture week 2, was able to return in week 13. He didn't look the same, Adam, but I don't know, the expectations for him to think that he was going to be able to be 100% once he came back in week 13 probably was just being way too optimistic. What makes you like him? What makes you draft him?
Yeah, we're getting a discount. I mean, people were loving Pacheco last year going into the year thinking he was going to be the feature back. And I don't think you could take anything away from what we saw. I mean, he came back more than likely too early, fractured fibula. I mean, what were we expecting? He needed more time. So they've said that he's put on some good weight. That's what Andy Reid was saying. And it's not like they did much here in the offseason. I don't buy Kareem Hunt. I mean, he was very inefficient, one-year deal. Elijah Mitchell's there. So I think there's every opportunity here for Pacheco to seize the backfield. And the price is cheap. So to me, if you do draft him and it doesn't work out based on his price, it's not really going to cost you much. So especially if you wait on the running back position, I like the price right now. I think people have kind of given up on him because they have visions of what they saw last year. You know, underdog ADP 83.2, ESPN 83.7, sleeper 65.5, 72.1 on Yahoo. But yeah, I like the price. I mean, you're talking, 7th, 8th round. You know, if you wait on the running back position, ideally you want him more as an RB3. But yeah, I'd draft him at that spot.
Yeah, I think I'm okay with it again at the price tag because he's going around. I mean, he's like you said, underdog. He's cheap. RB28. This is best ball, so the format is a little bit different there. But RB28 that puts him. He's going around Tony Pollard, Aaron Jones, Brian Robinson Jr. Give me him every single time if we're comparing him to those three, right? Has to be.
Yeah, I think so. You said it was
Pollard, Aaron Jones, Brian Robinson Jr.
Yeah, I think I would take Pollard over him.
Is it close though, or no?
Yeah, it's close.
Okay.
Yeah, but I do like. I mean, again, I like the price. Not a target if I need a running back in that range. I just think that people are just remembering him from last year, and it's unfair. I don't think you can judge him based on what we saw. We even, spoke with him for
we did.
At the Super Bowl.
Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That's so fun.
You could tell, like, it took a lot to come back, and you can't be confident either running on that leg, and give him credit for coming back so soon. It probably wasn't the best decision, but yeah, I mean, if you go look at the stats, they're terrible. But you have to understand, he rushed back from that injury and wasn't close to 100%. Now with a full offseason, and I think we all do expect the Chiefs offense to be better. A lot of it had to do with their defense being so good. And they kind of just play. You see it. They kind of just play conservative. And it's like, fourth quarter, we need to win it. All right, Mahomes, go do your thing. And then he would lead them to a comeback. So I think it could open up a little bit more this year for them.
And they had some crazy games last year, too. Like that Broncos game that the Broncos, I think, were at home and they blocked the field goal or something. Like they had some crazy games just kind of bounce their way. So I'm with you on Rice, actually, or not Rice, Isaiah Pacheco there. So I'm kind of with you. Hopefully it looks like he is on track to be back and ready to go fully 100%. So that's always good to see there. Again, this was a Draft or Pass, fun new segment we're going to continue doing throughout the season, presented by Premier Sports. Again, we talked about them before, but if you have a high school athlete that you believe could take their game to the next level, we all want to see that. Premier National Sports is the team to help you through that process. They help families. They're here specifically to help rising high school athletes take their game to the next level with personalized recruiting strategies and also NIL education. So again, if you're interested or want more information on them, check out Premier National Sports. We're going to continue on and go through more of those best ball stacks that we are targeting. Late round stacks for best ball. We're doing that here coming up next. All right, fantasy football fans, sure, NFL season may be long over, but next season's action is already well underway. We're talking big trades, new signings, draft order shuffles, you name it, and all this preseason NFL action is easier to enjoy with the official beer of the NFL. So get Bud Light delivered today and enjoy every season projection, every player trade, every coaching change, and draft pick with the clean, crisp taste of Bud Light, the official beer of the NFL. Stock up now for the offseason and enjoy Bud Light, easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam Ronis with you on this Sunday, getting you ready for all things fantasy football. We'll be back 7 days a week, July 7th. BFF's back together again, Adam. It's like
7 days a week?
5 days a week. Did I say
Yeah, you said 7. I was like, wait, did I miss something here?
You missed you didn't come to the meeting. I'm sorry.
Yeah, apparently. Jeez.
Well, I always say 7 days, in your inbox 7 days a week for the newsletter. We're on. 7 days a week. We could do it.
I'm up for it.
Sick of me.
No, I wouldn't. I made it through the entire football season, so.
You're like, I've done it once. We can do it again.
Do you don't? No one gets sick of you. I don't think. You don't seem like the person that gets on people's nerves.
If you do, don't let me know. Keep it to yourself. We don't need that energy. But 5 days a week, not 7. Could be fun though. But that's going to be really exciting. And again, we have really exciting things coming to fantasylife.com. So just a reminder there as well. All right, let's go through some late round. These are late round stacks for best ball that we're kind of talking about. And I don't, Adam, are we not talking about Cam Ward enough? Or is that just my opinion? Are we just completely overlooking Cam Ward? Or is it something where we see what he did in college, we see that he doesn't give us as much as the rushing upside, and we say, we don't necessarily need to worry about it. But I don't know, for the last quarterbacks that have been number 1 overall picks, it feels like we've talked about him a lot more than we have with Cam Ward, Bryce Young, Trevor Lawrence. Again, it gets a little bit different when we get to like Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, I don't know, Jared Goff. Like, I don't know. It just feels like maybe no one's talking about him right now. So I'm just here to say that he is a really good and one of my favorite late round stacks for best ball right now, especially if you go out, you get, a Tajay Spears, Chigakonkwo, Alec Iomanor. I have to work on that one. But, there's some guys that you can really stack up here. Tyler Lockett, I don't know. I kind of like it.
So is this more of a best ball thing because the stack is cheap, or you like him in redraft too?
Oh, man, I don't know if I'm completely out on him on redraft either. He's cheap. But again, it just depends on the roster, right? Because I'm not going to, I don't want to say waste a pick, but he's not going to come in and be I'm not going to feel good about him coming in to be my second quarterback. So I do think this is more for best ball because he's been going as like, that he could be your third quarterback really at that point, and you're just throwing a late round pick on him.
Yeah, so in best ball then I could see it. It makes way more sense. I just don't see it in redraft. I think a lot of it is this was an underwhelming quarterback class, and going to Tennessee, like, what can we expect? There's not a ton of weapons there. Decent. So I don't think we can expect massive numbers. There'll probably be some turnovers. There'll be a rookie bump where he'll have some challenges. So, yeah, best ball, I could see it because, as you alluded to, you can get him as your third quarterback. And you do sometimes I take a third quarterback, sometimes I don't. If I'm going to get an elite one, I probably won't. But if I miss out and I wind up getting someone like around 10 and then another one, then yeah, I'll probably take a third quarterback. Also depends on the roster spots and all that, because some of these best ball formats vary. But it does make sense because if one of your quarterback gets hurt, you don't want to rely on just one. You want to have that third option. And with Ward, again, when you're talking best ball, your third quarterback, you only need a few good spike weeks to get into your starting lineup. And we know the elite offenses, the stacks are going to be expensive. Yeah. So you do want to find a couple late ones that are really cheap. That could be sneaky value. And based on the price, and with Cam Ward, I guess he could be one of those options late.
He's just a late pick. That's all I'm gonna say on Underdog. So if you are looking to stack, if you're looking for a late one where maybe you got sniped and you say, I need to pivot and I want to make sure I get some kind of stack here. Cam Ward going as the QB 26 right now on Underdog. So I think he's a good one to shout out. We've got a couple more though that I definitely want to get to, and maybe we need to talk about Daniel Jones again. We're gonna go through late round stacks for best ball here coming up next. Fantasy Life right here on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam Ronis. Make sure you're giving us a follow at KValenzuela17 at Adam Ronis over there on X, on Twitter. Finishing up the late round stacks for best ball. We already talked about little bit of Cam Ward going super late over there on Underdog. I know we mentioned Daniel Jones. Should we be stacking Daniel Jones right now, Adam? Should we be some people that say, all right, we just need to wait it out and see if Anthony Richardson's going to be good to go during training camp? I haven't taken as much of him just because I want to wait to know if it's still going to be a quarterback competition, if Anthony Richardson, what his timeline is to return, all that stuff. I'm a little bit nervous about it, but I still stand on the Daniel Jones. Like, maybe he's going to be good.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest issue right now is we don't know how much time Richardson is going to miss. I mean, I did see a report that he's expected to be fine for training camp, but then, what if Jones outplays him? So I think there's a lot of question marks. So I don't think you want to go heavy on that. If you do play a lot, maybe sprinkle in here or there, right? Because you really don't need him to play the entire season. You just need him to play enough weeks to give you good enough production. And we know that the Colts receivers, I'm assuming, are pretty cheap, right?
Yes.
At this point, yeah.
Alec Pierce, 172. Giddens at running back, 186. A.D. Mitchell, 204. Tyler Warren, 126.
And even Pittman and Downs probably aren't that bad, right?
Nope. Let me hang on. Yeah, they're just all cheap. The only thing is, so Pittman's wide receiver 51.
Yeah, that's
so 93. He's cheap.
If you would have said that a year ago, we were like, wait, what happened? Right?
He was so bad. Yeah,
I know, but
bad,
a lot of it was the quarterback play.
Are you drafting him this year?
Right now, probably not. I mean, because you're not taking him. You're taking him a wide receiver 5 at this point because of the questions with the offense. We already seen it. You don't want to. You're going to be in a situation where I can't play this guy this week.
Yes. And it's going to be hard to know when to play him as well. Yeah. I don't know. He goes around like Emeka Egbuka, Jaden Higgins, Cooper
Which is
Kupp.
Crazy. Those guys are like backups. But you saw the floor for Pittman was extremely low last year due to the quarterback
That's what I'm saying,
play.
though. What if Daniel Jones wins this game and then he's the next quarterback that we just said, oh, there's a revamped career. He just needed to lead. I don't know. I'm not there yet, but I'm just saying there is a path for that to happen.
It is possible. You have to look at all paths and potential outcomes, and it is in the outcomes.
Emeka Egbuka has a he needs someone to get hurt.
Right. And people still feel better about him than Pittman. That's how bad it was.
It really is just kind of nuts there. All right. Again, all those articles we talked about today, fantasylife.com. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us on this Sunday. Everyone go enjoy your day. Be safe out there this weekend. Fantasylife.com to subscribe to that newsletter as well. We'll see you here next time.